Hey, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us here on Polk Place. And in studio, first timer from Peace River Center is Bryce Henderson. He's a therapist with Peace River Center. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So how long you been with Peace River Center?
A little over a year now. I started as an undergrad intern, and then worked my way up, and then actually just recently got promoted into a therapist role, and so I've honestly enjoyed every moment of it.
So what made you want to join the field? What you guys do over there for the community is absolutely incredible, and you're just another in a long line of people giving help to those who need it the most.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I think a lot of that actually comes to personal experience, in the past. Having family members who have mental health illnesses of their own, and being able to I've dealt with some pretty rough things, and so I feel like God's given me a gift to be able to help others and empathize a little bit more with them. So I've honestly been able to use a lot of the things I've learned, and teach other kiddos.
For those that might know, just a brief overview of Peace River Center and some of the things that you guys offer. Yeah,
so Peace River Center, it's a very big umbrella. And so you've got, victim services that deal with, domestic violence. You do have, children's services, which, is a big umbrella in of itself. And I specifically work under that umbrella, under children's services, under the CAT team. And so that one, we provide, therapy, mentoring, case management, and so it's a wraparound service, the CAT team is, and so it's honestly a pleasure to be able to help a family out in a very holistic kind of way.
I want you to talk to me a little bit about anxiety in children. When it comes to this, how prevalent is it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think the last indicated report that the CDC actually has is from 2013 to 2019, and they last said that it was around 5.8 million children that deal with anxiety, and that's pre-COVID. So I imagine that's been amplified tenfold, and so I think it's really prevalent. I think it's 1 in 10 kids now are close to having anxiety. So you're not alone if you are dealing with anxiety, for sure.
What are some of the things that parents can do to prepare their children for the storm?
Absolutely, and so I think one thing that kids are most seeking out right now in this stage of life is that security and comfort. And so I think one thing that parents can do is honestly, walk through and have a plan. It eases, some of those nerves that kids have related to that anxiety. And so that could make an evacuation plan. I mean, if you're not in a, suitable housing, such as a manufactured home or RV, you can look on a county website for shelters in the area. But so I think having a place where they can be also listened to. I think parents often just kind of neglect even listening to their children's concerns. I think honestly sitting down and allowing them to talk about any fears that they have and validating some of those is the first step in that, for sure.
If you have to evacuate, talk about the importance of taking some things that are the child's, that they have that thing of comfort with them, whether it be their pillow, whether if it's the bear, if it's talk about the importance of having that comfort tool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know even for my little brother, because I've been in Florida and gone through many hurricanes, and so he had a little special blankie, and so having that source of comfort. It honestly, it's that security that I was just talking about. How that's, I think, the most desired aspect of this stage of life is having something that you can hold on to, because obviously in a hurricane you're not in control, and so for the things that you are in control of, taking that little blankie or stuffed animal or something like that that gives you that I'm at home, I'm in a safe place, is actually really important.
Say the storm hits, a lot of children these days really are kind of tethered to their electronics.
Yeah.
And in the event we lose power, we lose cell towers. Talk about preparing your child for a world of a few days, if not longer, without electricity, without the electronic security blanket. Talk about some of the things that parents during the storm can do to ease the comfort and the strain of the storm.
Absolutely. And so I think parents probably know a little bit better about some of the, the ways to cope with some of that anxiety, because obviously, I think a lot of parents didn't grow up with, 24/7, electronics right there in front of you. And so I think there's many coping, mechanisms that, parents can help their kids with. And like I said before, honestly, listening to them, I think, is the first one. But allowing them to kind of express their concerns is one aspect. But then I think also finding community. I know that a lot of shelters, if you do end up going to a shelter, there's multiple different kids there that are dealing with the exact same thing. And so finding that common ground definitely, I think, does help put a lot of their nerves at ease, for sure.
I dealt with it with the storm last year. My daughter's 32, but I have a 26-pound Maine Coon cat, and I don't think he's ever gone through a storm. And I could tell the anxiety in the pet, and I could imagine what a child would be like. Say the storm is bearing down, and say you're at home or you're in a shelter. You know what I mean? But to hear the brutal force that is going on outside, what are some of the things that parents can do to keep the children calm during that? Yeah,
no, absolutely. The first thing I would say is, honestly, limit their exposure to, I think, outside, media and stuff like that. Oftentimes, it tends to focus a lot on the...
Paints a very dark picture.
It does. And so I think, limiting the exposure to that, obviously, be safe and, be aware of your surroundings. But once you're in a sheltered place, I think limiting that exposure. But then, when things are going around, outside, if you're hearing things and stuff like that, and similar to what I was saying earlier, the things that you can control. And so if you know your triggers, I think that's a big aspect of it. And so if lightning is a trigger for you, go somewhere place where there's no windows. If it's that thunder sound or whatever, find a place where you don't hear it. It's just whatever you can control in that environment. I would definitely suggest for parents and kids as well.
We've got about 30 seconds left. What I'd like you to do, you got the final word. Inspire parents to seek the information that they may need during the storm, and especially through you guys, make the call. Inspire parents to get involved and really help their children through a situation like this.
Absolutely. And I think instead of reinventing the wheel, look at resources in the community that have already gone through this, 100 times over. The hurricanes aren't something new. And so, I know Peace River Center, they've got a lot of different services that can provide some of that counseling. And so, look on our website to see what kind of resources we have there. And I know the county website as well has a lot of that. I've seen that on there as well. So honestly, look at the resources that they have. Look at the experts in the field, and honestly see how to comfort your children during this time.
Well, Bryce, I want to thank you for coming in, and any time that you want to come in and talk about any of the programs, please come back and see me.
Well, I appreciate it, sir.
The devastation caused by hurricanes can be overwhelming to anyone, but poses unique challenges for children. Compared to adults, children suffer more from exposure to disaster, including psychological, behavioral, and physical problems, as well as difficulties learning in school. Children's reactions to hurricanes differ. Some exhibit little distress, others have short-term difficulties, and still others struggle with long-term mental health problems. In most cases, children's negative responses to disasters decrease over time. Now, if you need more information on hurricane prep and children's reactions, give Peace River Center a call at 863-519-0575 or look them up on the web at peacerivercenter.org.